welcome to the Metacast Crypto Corner, brought to you by Naavik. I'm your host, Niko Vuori. Today, I am very excited to invite a couple of special guests to the pod. They're from Magic Eden. They occupy a uniquely interesting vantage point, in my opinion at least, in the Web3 ecosystem. For those who don't know yet, Magic Eden is the largest by far NFT marketplace on Solana, and I know that they have some pretty ambitious plans to give OpenSea a run for its money as well and go cross-chain. In its last round of funding, the company was valued at $1.6 billion, and it's barely a year old. So there's been some crazy growth and some really exciting initiatives that we're going to talk about. They have, in the past at least, said that they are cash flow positive and profitable and have been since day one. Maybe we can get a confirmation or denial at some point in this pod, whether that's still true. And I know that they have about 85-90% market share, depending on what day you look and what period you look over in Solana. So basically, long story short, the company's come a very long way in a very short space of time. They have their fingers in a lot of pies. They do a lot of interesting things in the ecosystem. And so our first guest today, I'm going to introduce to you. I really hope I get the pronunciation correct. We practiced it at the start. Zhuoxun Yin, or Zed for short. We'll be calling him Zed after this. Welcome to the show.
Yo, thanks, Niko. Really appreciate it, man. It's always
Awesome.
nice to talk to you.
Great to have you here. All right. What is, and we'll get to Tony in a second, but what is important in my mind to know is that Magic Eden actually wasn't the first Solana NFT marketplace. I don't think they maybe even weren't the third, but they very, very quickly grew to overtake the other marketplaces. And in my opinion, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, it's because it's been a relentless focus on user experience, iterating, moving fast, trying different things out, tweaking what's not working, being very public, sometimes apologizing for things, which I really appreciate, and being very open and transparent. And I think that's built a lot of trust, at least it has with me. And I know a lot of other devs in that space as well. One of the things that they've done really interestingly, in my opinion, and are one of the best at doing so far, at least, obviously things move at a million miles in crypto Twitter and in the world of Web3, is they very early on invested in gaming. And that's really what we're going to talk about here on this pod. They started out, of course, helping all NFT projects, but game launch pads as well. They've got the Eden Games portal, which showcases different games in the ecosystem. And most recently, and this is why we're going to get to Tony, they've started investing, making equity investments and other kinds of investments directly into Web3 gaming companies. And so that's what we wanted to have Tony Zhao on the show as well, on the pod. Tony came to Magic Eden from Tencent, and now he leads games investing at Magic Eden. Tony, welcome to the pod. Great to have you here.
Hey, thanks, Niko. Awesome.
So great. All right. Well, with that out of the way, let's dive into the episode. So the first question I have for you is going to start basically from my thesis in my gaming career, and I'm going to just kind of see how you guys feel about it. So in my career, my main thesis has always been that whenever there's this big movement of technology and culture, consumer culture, that kind of changes people in an interesting way, gaming oftentimes emerges as a big use case for that particular kind of moment in culture or particular use case that's emerged. So what I mean by that, I got my start at Zynga. Zynga, of course, was building games on top of social networks, and it was a way for casual gamers to play in the middle of the day in the office for the first time, and brought a lot of players who otherwise wouldn't be gamers into gaming. Mobile, of course, opened up, time and place. You could play anywhere. And, again, unlocked new use cases. And of course, gaming has grown to be the biggest use case and the biggest revenue driver, certainly, in the mobile ecosystem. And so I'd be interested to hear, and Anatoly is actually on the record as saying that he sees, founder of Solana, one of the founders of Solana, is on the record as saying that he sees gaming as potentially a driver of mass market adoption of blockchain. And so I certainly believe that, otherwise I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing as my day job. Do you share this view? Do you see blockchain as this uniquely compelling technology that kind of opens up gaming to a new type of gamer? Does it open it up at all, or is it the same type of gamer but just playing in a different way? I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts. Zed, maybe we start with you on this one.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I appreciate it, Niko. This is it's gonna be a fun chat. No, I think we absolutely believe it too. I mean, we wouldn't, I think, be having this conversation if we also were not in this boat. The thing that we've always found very, very exciting about it is that, the reason we started Magic Eden in the first place was because we felt like there had to be a much better way for creators, communities to interact with one another and drive a lot of that growth in a way that we haven't seen before. That's ultimately what I think NFTs generally are about. And even if you look back at the history of crypto, it's all very, very tribal, very community driven, very, very inherently social, right? And when we started this company, we thought to ourselves, hey, like, what does this mirror? And it obviously mirrors a lot of things that we see in traditional gaming, right? Where people gather in communities, people are online a lot, they're having a lot of fun. And I think that's inherently very, very complementary to what we saw and what we observed with NFTs. So very naturally, I think that it makes a ton of sense that game developers are some of the more experimental folks that will come and actually try the stuff, like people like yourself, Niko. So we definitely believe this. I think the second part of your question around what types of players will this attract, I think the early adopters will be a different type of player. We've already started to see this, right? The ones that have experimented with some of the more like crypto native and Web3 native games, that is a very, very Web3 native audience so far. And I do expect that that's probably the audience that initially will drive a lot of the early adoption here. But over a long sort of, not even a long arc, but over a certain time horizon, and we start to see more developers come and experiment with Web3 as a new business model, we expect more traditional types of games to obviously proliferate too. And that, if that plays out well, and that hopefully is really beneficial for people like yourself and us as a marketplace, we would expect to see that is the moment that drives a lot of mass adoption into crypto and NFTs. But it's not necessarily like a crypto kind of thing or a not crypto thing. It's more, this is a different kind of business model for games. And we want to be here as a marketplace and a platform to be able to serve that movement towards this new business. And we're really, really excited about it.
Awesome. I mean, a lot of things there resonate very strongly with me. Different kind of business model. That's one of the things that I've always excited by. Also, different kinds of game designs. Different types of gaming experiences are opened up because of blockchain. I mean, to me at least, blockchain technologies, it's not necessarily about crypto at all. It's just about having a different type of tool set to develop different kinds of experiences and unlock different kinds of economies, and of course that drive different kinds of revenue models. So great to hear we have a really shared view there. You were very early to open up gaming as a I don't want to call it a portal, but a use case for NFTs in your marketplace, and you've been driving that since, not relentlessly, or maybe relentlessly. You drive on everything relentlessly, but what do you see the Magic Eden role being for gaming in this ecosystem? Obviously, NFT marketplace, Launchpad, sure, those are a great place to start. Where else does it go? Like, what is your kind of vision for how does gaming fit in with the overall Magic Eden strategy as you move forward to the next phase?
Yeah, for sure. It's a great question. I'll kick off, and then I think Tony might have some thoughts. I think generally at Magic Eden, we think about the market as more about categories rather than, I think a lot of people think about crypto and NFTs as like, what chains will you be on? We kind of think about it from like a category and vertical standpoint. And we've always felt that for a category like gaming, it requires a different kind of mindset and a different kind of product to hopefully showcase the best of what's being built by a bunch of really innovative developers. And we felt that in the early days, we should focus on basically two areas. One is collectibles, which is kind of what everyone saw was the thing that got product market fit with NFTs in the early days. And then the second thing, which we think will drive a lot of the future growth, is in gaming. And the reason we made that decision was because number one, kind of to the reasons earlier around it being very, very complementary to how people think already about NFTs. And we decided at a very early stage to separate these things from a product standpoint too. And we felt that what is the thing ultimately that game developers are looking for if they're coming to build in Web3? There's probably two things at the highest level. One is like they want to know how to do it, right? There's so many, it's almost like a Pandora's box of questions, right? It's like, what chain should I be on? What marketplace should I use? How do I mint an NFT? There's all these kind of questions that come flooding to the fore. And we wanted to simplify that journey, which is why we basically built, first of all, like a primary market. This is the Launchpad that you mentioned earlier. And obviously a secondary market, which is either first party on Magic Eden or something that can be white labeled, and games can build their own marketplace using our infrastructure. So all of these things are kind of, just call it, broadly in the bucket of infrastructure and tools that game developers can access via working with Magic Eden, and this can extend much further beyond those two things too. And I think we're starting to work with games a lot more deeply on a bunch of other integrations that require smart contracts and other that power a bunch of game mechanics, right? So it sort of extends way beyond just the marketplace. That's number one. Then the second area, I think, is more around distribution. And Magic Eden today, marketplaces are a very natural kind of meeting point, right, between at least from an NFT standpoint, between collectors and creators. And the same, I think, is going to be very, very true on the game side, in that we think that Magic Eden can be a very, very natural portal between players and game studios, game developers. And this is why we sort of built out from a very early stage a very, very a very focused discovery portal that's specific for games. So that players can obviously discover what is hopefully the best Web3 gaming content. And then they can experience it, they can play it, they can do a whole bunch of things without even necessarily buying or selling NFTs. And that's, I think, a very, very important distinction. And then secondly, it gives a way for developers to surface what they've built, right? And give them discovery and give them the ability to basically attract users to come and try their game. So we're really excited about that. There's obviously a very, very long roadmap around this, but at the highest level, those are the two areas that I think Magic Eden can really play in the gaming ecosystem when it comes to Web3.
Yeah, distribution. You said the magic word. That's one of the hardest problems that I think for all game devs right now, or any developers, any creators. How do you get distribution? How do you get discovery? There's a proliferation of great content, and it's just oftentimes really hard to find. In Web 2, or certainly free to play mobile gaming, which is where I most recently came from, there's this incredible tool stack that exists. You've got your analytics, you've got your attribution, you've got your UA channels, you've got your ad networks, you've got your publishing players. There's all this whole ecosystem that's been built out, and there's absolutely, and I bet you Tony's got some thoughts on this. There's absolutely nothing really so far in the kind of blockchain Web3 enabled gaming ecosystem. In fact, it's kind of goes the opposite direction, where there are no advertising identifiers. There's you can be anonymous, and that's kind of part of being in Web3 is the anon degen kind of character, right? And so it's just a really interesting that you said that, because that is absolutely, in my mind, one of the biggest problems. I'm going to probe on that a little bit. Actually, Tony, do you have any thoughts on that? How do you, because you've obviously done a lot of games investing previously, would love to hear your thoughts on how you see this kind of distribution role that Zed's talking about for Magic Eden. How do you see as the games guy at Magic Eden, how do you see that evolving, that distribution challenge and solution tool set that you guys are looking to build?
Yeah. So kind of, adding to what Z said, right? Web2 games today, have all the tools they need, right? On engine, like all the tool set for UA games, whatever they can think of. And, people are building VR as another, hot subject of the, metaverse, right? But ultimately, these guys are innovating on gameplay, right? From a Web2 standpoint, the tech is there, the engine's there, everything is there, right? When they come to Web3, that's not the case, right? Because all these the things that they kind of have it for just end up in their hands, right? They focus on building quality gameplay. They need to build it themselves, right? They need to think about how do you build smart contract, for example, right? When back in Web 2, all you think about is, hey, I'll just slap it on Steam, I'll take it to Apple, Google, and I'll run my backend with whatever, right? AWS, right? Here, there's no kind of that hand holding for you, right? And we want to be a platform that really essentially, burdens some of these tasks for the game developers, right? Because ultimately, for the whole industry to grow, game quality has to be on par with Web 2, right? And for that to happen, the game developers need to focus on making quality games, and not focusing on these other stuff.
Yeah, hallelujah is all I say to that. I don't want to have to deal with the distribution problem, the attribution problem, the analytics problem, the UA problem. I just want to focus on making games, building great, fun content, and just thinking about that and not worrying about, okay, how do I, do I airdrop into this wallet? Is that how I show an ad, like, because that's what people are talking about. Like, that's not it's an interesting topic to talk about, certainly. And I love the quirkiness of the challenge in many ways. But at the same time, for my day job, I just want to focus on making games. And I know almost all developers feel the same way. They're like, they make games because they like making games and they're good at it. They don't want to be solving all these other problems as well. So great to hear that you guys are thinking about this and recognizing this as a big problem and a problem that Magic Eden can play a pretty big role in solving for. You may have mostly answered this, but I do want to pick on this a little bit. Why did you focus on games so early on? You talked about, hey, collectibles, that made sense. That's where all the action was and still is mostly. Gaming, yes, I agree with your thesis on that, at both at the high level and at the detail level. But I'm just curious, like as an early stage startup, again, you're barely a year old. Did you celebrate your 1-year birthday like a couple of months ago? Something like that?
I think it was about 4 weeks ago.
4 weeks ago. That's what I'm talking about. And so, typically people tell, any investor you talk to or ex-founder, startup founder, they'll tell you like, focus. You got to be relentless about that. And yet you took on gaming as essentially an entirely different product. Obviously tied to the marketplace. I get that, but a different product and certainly a different problem to solve, kind of a different customer as well. So super curious to hear, like, why did you go so early into gaming? I'm glad you did because it's helping us a ton. But there weren't that many games at the time. Most of the games that were there were super early or weren't even completed. Most of them still aren't completed. They're under development. Gaming cycles are long. 12, 18, 24 months. So you took a bet on gaming very early on, without a ton of market data out there. Just want to pick on this a little bit further. I want to understand your thought process for why did you go so early into this vertical?
Yeah, Niko, we're the same animal, right? We both went in. Both went in very, very, very early. No, I think there's probably two reasons at a high level. One is we obviously think it's a massive, massive market. That goes without saying. I think the second reason is that when we were on the journey of starting this company, myself and my co-founders, we obviously talked to a lot of creators that were in the ecosystem, right? We wanted to understand what their pain points were. And we just kept running into game developers. And not just any game developers, it was really, really high quality people from traditional gaming that were looking at this as a massive next wave kind of opportunity. And when you see that, this is the old sort of, the thing that VCs always say, right? It's like, you got to follow where the developers are. And we really felt that very, very early. And when we released Magic Eden and we released, the marketplace first, then a launch pad to help creators launch their collections. I think in the first couple of months, maybe like 20-25% of the applications to use our launchpad were actually also gaming related. And one of the first launches we did was Mini Royale Nations back in December last year, which is, them, Niko, the amazing guys coming from traditional gaming, building, free to play, kind of like shooter, casual shooter, right? And we still just saw a lot of teams like that wanted to use a lot of the infrastructure that we had built. And we thought to ourselves like, hey, actually, there is a huge opportunity here because there's no other marketplace that is really trying to serve this cohort of developers. And honestly, if we believe that NFTs as a fundamental like layer or technology is going to expand rapidly over the next, call it 3 to 5 years, you want that technology to be adopted by the largest industries or verticals. And it's sort of almost like let's put our money where our mouth is, right? We think that gaming is absolutely going to be a huge part of that. And if this cycle is going to, that development cycle is a long cycle, 18, 24, sometimes longer months, we may as well start early and start building those relationships early and start finding ways to partner with them. And we're very glad we did because I think, I would say even now, after a year, we are even more excited about it. Even in the bear market, that's generally affected crypto and many, many asset classes. One of the most robust categories that we see still today is that developers that are building games are full steam ahead. And we're still seeing a lot of appetite for them to to launch NFTs, obviously launch their games, and we continue to be really, really excited about it.
Yeah, likewise. I wouldn't be doing it otherwise. The kind of latest evolution of your relationship with games and kind of helping out the gaming ecosystem is investing directly in companies. And full disclosure, Magic Eden is a minority investor in Blockstars, which is a company that I'm a co-founder of. What criteria are you using to evaluate gaming investments? So actually, let's take one step back. When did you make the decision that, hey, we want to be making these investments directly into certain, picking winners, so to speak? Picking winners is can be risky, and it's one of those things where if it pays off, it's great, and obviously you can kind of raise the entire ecosystem. If it doesn't, there's a risk that I certainly don't share this view, but there's a risk that you would be, if there are big successes, people might say, hey, a marketplace is picking winners. Like, is that okay? How does that feel? You must have had conversations around this internally. And I don't know the answer to this, so I'm genuinely curious. Was it an easy decision to go into, hey, we're going to make these investments in gaming. We're going to hire Tony to do this. Like, he's one of the best in the business. He did it for Tencent at a huge scale. Or was it a controversial decision internally to start doing this? How did this evolve at Magic Eden as a conversation?
Yeah. I can kick off, and then I'll hand it to Tony to talk about sort of the thesis and how we think about it. It was actually a very, very easy decision to make internally, because once we decided we wanted to serve game developers, we basically laid out what are the things that they need, right? And there's a whole spectrum of things, around tech, infra. We talked about distribution. There's a bunch of product stuff around that, obviously. And then obviously the other thing they need is that to make the transition for a lot of traditional developers in Web2 to come across in Web3, they also need capital to get funded, right? And we are lucky to be in a position where we're well capitalized, but we also have a very, very strong network of investors that we know in Web3, as well as gaming. And we thought, hey, let's be a true partner for game developers and partner with them on every stage of that journey. And we may as well start to do that at the very earliest stages. And for us, we kind of think about it as not so much we're not a traditional fund. We're not a VC fund by any means. But we want to back and work with developers who share the similar sort of long-term thesis that we do. Tony, I don't know if you want to share more.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say it's much about picking winners, right? Because gaming as an industry overall is a very dynamic industry, meaning the games of, today, if you look in 3 years might not be the game of, everything changes so fast. New games are coming out. So, we want to stay relevant, right? To stay relevant, meaning we want to, work with the creators that are like you are building the next generation of games, right? If you look back at the products that came out during the bull market, right? I don't think that's going to be the case for the next bull market, right? Because right now developers are building not really Web3 native games, but they're all thinking about building Web 2.5 or, some elements of incorporating mass market, right? And to do that, the gameplay itself is going to change dramatically, right? Going from the traditional play to earn, which was invented in the last bull cycle, to a more better system where players are incentivized, right, for the fun, and games are more like game sensitive DeFi products. And for us, really, the fund is not really more of a fund, right? It's more of an investment from like Magic Eden itself. It's not like a venture fund. What we really want is we want to work with our partners, right? And the partners want to work with us because, hopefully that the solutions and tool sets we're building is going to power a lot of their pain points in the future, right? And so that kind of deep level partnership is something that we want to be building here as a marketplace. Obviously, as a marketplace, right? We're, this, concept of neutrality, right? I mean, if you look at all the gaming marketplaces, right, there's no neutrality. Steam is a game developer. Epic is a game developer, right? So it really is just became more of a distribution channel, really driven by strong content creation initially. I mean, the true, platform partner Apple, charges an arm and leg. They just yesterday reaffirmed that it's
Oh yeah, we saw the
30%
news.
or DTFO. So that's their official stand right there. They're not
Yeah.
bulging.
Yeah. I'll
Yeah.
share as well. When we decided to do this, I actually have to give credit to one of our investors, Sean from Lightspeed. I said to her, like, "Hey, we're thinking about spinning this up. Who's the best? Who should we go get to go lead this thing?" And Sean said, "You should get Tony from Tencent." And we met, and I thought, this is the guy. So it felt very natural in that we had come to that internal decision ourselves to do this, and then we also happened to meet the right guy, and it happened pretty organically. So we're very happy to be in this position.
Awesome. I love that story. You can't invest in every company, obviously, every gaming company. You must have some criteria for how you evaluate gaming investment. Maybe this is more for Tony, this question, but how do you guys look at the ecosystem and say, okay, here are the bets that we want to make, so to speak? I get it. You're not picking winners, and I appreciate that. I think that's you're raising the ecosystem, and if all goes well, that's what we will all say. Like, yes, this was rising tide lifting all boats, and Magic Eden playing their part in it. But again, you can't invest in every company, even good ones. I'm sure you have to pass on. So how are you guys thinking about investments? What criteria are you using? Do you have a framework in mind? Is it purely content plays, i.e. what I just call good games? Or do you invest in picks and shovels, infrastructure, anything kind of gaming adjacent? Curious to hear your thesis around what you're looking at and how you pick the ones that you invest in.
Yeah, I think first thing that comes to my mind is, work together, right? For us and the gaming partners, we want to be partners, right? And the investment is not a standalone investment per se. It's a way for us to really realign our interests and to build that strong connections between each other. So, on the content side, obviously, I think I speak for all the gaming team here, and Z has done a great job of hiring gamers for the gaming team, right? So we think that the next wave of Web3 games is going to come from high quality game, driven by high quality gameplay, right? And at the end of the day, if the game is not fun, like, why would you play it, right? That's why I don't view play to earn games as games, but more like a DeFi product. I tried it. I pulled an Excel spreadsheet and I was like, okay, this is I'm gonna do some quick math there, just from my finance background. And I have never really done that for any other games, right? And every other game is me being frustrated, be like, oh, okay, I'll put some money in, or be like, oh, I want this rare skin, okay, buy it. And the drive is mentally is very different, right? And I think that same mental loop, right, regardless of what you call Web2, mobile, PC, Web3, is going to have to be the same. Right. And I'm really just looking for that same kind of mentality that has a player when I play the game, that thrill you feel, right? And that's what's so exciting about gaming industry. And, in terms of what do we really look at, right? Besides content, right? We also look at a lot of our infrastructure partners, right? Because like as Z said, we want to build these tools and infrastructure toolkits for developers, right? But other people are doing the same. I think, rather than, kind of this closed walled garden approach of Web2, we want to partner with, key partners that, hey, like, let's speed up the process. Hey, let's build different things that we're really good at, right? These kind of conversations, I think, are really going to speed up the whole, the infrastructure development of the whole ecosystem. And, ultimately, right, people say like, Web3, the end goal of Web3, right? The end goal of Web3 is really just to convince the Web2 gamers, right? Which have been very negative about the notion of NFT in, the last 2 years or so, for them to be like, and, gamers are very, very hard to please to begin with, right? For them to come to the table and say, oh, this is awesome, right? And that's when like, you've truly built a great ecosystem.
Tony, you've done games investing at presumably an order of magnitude bigger check size, certainly when at Tencent, and obviously those games are different to what you're looking at right now. Other than the check size, what else is different about investing in Web3 gaming and whatever we're calling it. I'm using Web 2, but I don't really mean, what I mean by Web 2 is like everything that's not Web 3 really. So, PC, console, mobile, those kinds of games that are usually, closed economy, free to play mobile games, or pay to acquire a game, pay $49.99 on Steam or whatever.
Yep.
What's different about this kind of investing in Web3, where it's much more of a nascent ecosystem. The business models are certainly less proven. Some developers are building open economies versus closed economies and tokenizing their in-game currency, and these are all exciting things and fun things to experiment with. But how do you kind of weed through that? How does that compare to investing at Tencent versus what you're doing right now at Magic Eden?
Yeah, I think the traditional gaming market is more established, right? Meaning, like I said, what people look for is a new type of gameplay that can really, for example, Battle Royale, that really kind of drove, a new huge wave of, consumer adoption to Epic. And, PUBG Mobile and Call of Duty Mobile, right? And then kind of industry shifts towards that. I think it's for Web3, right? The exciting part about what we're at right now is there's no playbook, right? There's no established market. There's no dominant players. It's just a bunch of, hardworking, creative young minds or awesome minds trying to look into the space and say, like, how do we build something that has never been done before, right? Versus Web2, every game has sort of like, it's a cycle of like, old game kind of phase, new game comes. And that cycle, right, is, it repeats itself, right? In Web3, there's not even cycle 1, right? If you ask anyone, it's like, what's a great Web3 game you play? Like to just random people on the street. I bet they probably look at you very blankly and be like, huh? If you ask them what their favorite game is, they could probably answer that question in like 2 seconds, right? So, partly because this is the nice thing about gaming, right? Everyone plays games, right? Especially, kids nowadays, they're on Roblox or Minecraft. Mine was the Minecraft generation. Each generation has its own set of games like Warcraft, Diablo, or StarCraft, or, Doom for some of the older folks. And that cycle, right, it's been proven in Web 2. It's just, we're trying to start a new gaming cycle here on Web3. And that's why we're building everything from scratch.
Yeah, that's such a great insight. The notion that you have this kind of wave of creativity that then informs the next generation of game developers. You start with Puzzle Bobble back in the day, and then you get to Bejeweled, and then you get to Candy Crush, and it's there's like this successive waves of better and better games that build on top, the shoulders of the giant, so to speak, build on top of a very basic, simple concept, which was great for its time, and then just gets evolved and evolved and evolved by developers and just improved. We're seeing it now on mobile with hyper casual. We're seeing it on mobile with, the merge category of games. Like there are these incredible evolutionary. So you get a new genre or a new gaming cycle that you're talking about, Tony, and it starts with something basic and simple, and then it evolves from there into something huge. Again, we haven't seen it yet, but what are the most promising categories that you're seeing, Tony, or you said, like you're both looking at this space? What are you seeing that's most exciting to you? Where's the nugget of this next cycle looking like it's coming from, or have you seen anything yet?
I think if I knew the answer to that, I probably would go all in, right? So I don't, but what I think it's going to be, right? I mean, if you look at the immediate term, right? People are saying, look, these card playing CCG, right? Or RPG games, right? People are looking at it and say, hey, what's the most practical way to integrate NFT into your games, right? That's kind of one way of thought of like, hey, it's more like a really direct match, right? Of usage of NFT. Right. And the other way of thinking is like, hey, how do you, use the existing Web2 games, right? And start from some, foundation or existing player base, existing titles, and then try to convert into Web3 right? Tries to make them better using Web3 elements, right? That's another way of thinking. And some are just, are thinking more like, hey, what if we, experiment just, starting from, just pure Web3 elements, and then we kind of layer it with like some, more gameplay focus, right? More starting from more tokenized, that kind of economy focus. I think add game elements to that as well. So I think it's, there are a lot of thoughts, right, in the market. Whether who's right or which school of thinking is going to, end up, winning the largest number of users and, the strongest number of, community members, right? Because ultimately, for each game in the end, there's just a core group of hardcore gamers, right? And I don't know, right? But I think what I think is these groups all have in common, right, versus the previous generation, earlier adapter of Web3 is they're thinking bigger, right? They're thinking more about how do I really do, because the Web3 market today is probably like this, and this is Web2, right? How do we get the bigger slice of the pie? How do we make this more consumer friendly? How do we interact with like real gamers, right? And I think that's like an awesome change because we're expanding the ecosystem. And this is, why ultimately at the end of the day, what we want to do here at Magic Eden is we want to expand the Web3 gaming ecosystem.
I had a great pod a couple of weeks ago. I thought it was great. I enjoyed the conversation with John Oswald, who's the president of games at Gala Games. And of course, Gala is one of the big players on ETH and was there pretty early. One of the founders is Eric Schiermeier, who was also co-founder of Zynga. Yep. We had a really interesting conversation around how do we bring the mass market to Web3 gaming. And I'm not expecting you to have listened to that episode, but curious to hear your thoughts on what is going to bring the mass market to Web3 gaming. I know this is not a specific Magic Eden question, but yeah, we're talking about Web3 gaming. We're talking about, rising tide lifts all boats. We're talking about Magic Eden's role in that. Where's that wave of mass market gamers coming from? We've already talked about, it's got to be great games. They got to be fun. That's kind of table stakes, I feel like, at this point. But are there other tactics and are there things that you guys are thinking about at Magic Eden for driving that mass market adoption, getting that flywheel going, with more and more developers, better and better content, more and more users, more and more players are happy. They tell their friends, more and more developers, more money to be made. Like that flywheel needs to get going. And we're seeing it start, and we're all playing our part in getting that going. But where does that mass market flywheel? How do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I can kick off. I think it's like a very multifaceted solution. This is the crux of kind of what we're all working towards. But I think part of it is like product and onboarding. Part of it is obviously content. And then part of it is like where I think our role as Magic Eden comes in, aside from all the stuff that we've already talked about around, infra and then distribution. It's also this like notion of cross-pollinating users, right? And what I hope will be the case is that in not too distant future, we'll have basically most of the onboarding issues kind of worked on, which is the way that someone onboards into a wallet should not be seed phrase in your face, right? That's like definitely one thing. Two is that we shouldn't force users to buy things out the gate. I think that the experimentation we're starting to see around large sort of free drops of NFTs better aligns players and games and their incentives a lot better, right? Versus a traditional, 10,000 item profile picture drop, right? That doesn't feel like the right model necessarily for games. And it's cool to see that there are now, we did a launch with Azra recently, where they launched a bunch of free NFTs, and these are going to be player passes. And I think that's cool. We're really, really supportive of that. And then the third area where we fit in, I think, is there's obviously a lot of users or a lot of people that come to Magic Eden to discover different kinds of NFTs today. And I think one of the things that we can really help with is make sure that they're also seeing and discovering a lot of the really cool content from a gaming standpoint, and making sure that there's easy ways for them to try out and get going in these ecosystems. And the better we can do that, the more we can kick off or help to kick off that flywheel too, which is, hey, if you're building a game, come to Magic Eden. You can get a lot of the eyeballs that you need to kind of kick things going. And then after that, the word of mouth kind of thing gets going as well, right? And that starts that initial loop. It's not the total loop. Obviously, there's a lot more kind of retention, all these different kinds of things that traditional gaming developers are pretty used to. But there is some Web3 version of that I think is really interesting. And I think there'll be many teams that work on this. But I think those are some of the elements, at least, or building blocks that I think will be really needed to kickstart a lot of the ecosystem. But I think right now we're at the stage where a lot of this is being built out, and in parallel to the content. The content also is still being built out. So our expectation is that probably in the next 6 to 12 months is when things will really start to hopefully heat up. And we're excited about it, not just on Solana, but on some of the other chains as well. So I don't know, Tony, what you think?
Yeah, I mean, let's use an example, right? Like, for example, PUBG, right? You somehow, found an awesome game. And you're like, this is awesome. I want to play with my friends, right? Like Dee said, right? On the infrastructure side, there needs to be super easy onboarding experience for users, right? And, for them to, for the flywheel, the organic flywheel effect to kick, and that user experience is key, right? And after they also, user starts come in, right? If you think about like the whole gaming journey, they need to have good backend service, good social service, right? All of these complementary products, like Unity, Discord, Reddit, right? They all need to kind of function and, really to make this a social, and ultimately at the end of the day, social and communal experience, right? So that's what we're really aiming to get at with, our on the infrastructure side, right? And to make it as easy as possible for developer. But once user starts coming in, then they can, then like you said, the tool sets for Web2, that playbook that they've looked at for the past 10, 15 years or so, they want to use that playbook somehow, right? Or at least, learn what's a new playbook. Because people look at the industry today, right? And then they look at they're like, how do I do this? How do I launch a game? How do I, tell players about it? How do I build community, right? Like these guys, like, where's the big ad channel that I can just put money into?
Where's the Facebook, Google duopoly when you need it, right? we complain about it all the time, incessantly in Web 2. And now when we really need it, it's missing. I want it. I know. Game devs and gamers, we're always complaining about something. So one of the reasons I said you guys occupy in the intro a unique vantage point in the ecosystem is because now you're not just investing, in games. You're not building tools, just doing the financial investment like VCs do. Of course, there's a number of Web3 focused gaming funds, and a lot of traditional VCs are cutting those checks. And of course, they have great teams and ex gamers and industry professionals who understand the space really well. But they're not in the weeds, right? They're not building tools and talking to the devs on every single day. And that's why I say your position is quite unique. You are the largest NFT marketplace. You're putting in money from the top level down, making investments, cutting checks, and then from the bottom up, you're building all these tools. You're co-developing features. You're asking developers on a daily basis, like, what would make your life better? What tools do you need? How can we help your particular game genre or your particular game design to work better? And so the reason I say all that is there have to be some trends. You mentioned a trend, which I've noticed as well, a very recent trend. I don't know if it's actually, we can even call it a trend yet, but, doing free NFT drops, treating them more as battle passes, and not as actual like in-game characters or skins, and not charging people up front. Again, I don't know if it's a trend yet, but we're seeing some of that kind of nascent emergent behavior that's different to what was certainly the meta like 6, 9, 12 months ago when it was like 10,000 project, charge a mint, and then, those are your kind of playable characters, your skins. What other trends like that are you seeing from your unique vantage point of both looking top down and seeing a lot of different companies, and then bottoms up, seeing a lot of these like individual features? Our audience is really interested in, obviously, in gaming and Web3 gaming in particular. And so a lot of this stuff that feels like it's really in the weeds is actually really, really valuable information. These like little insights like, free drop, doing it as a paddle pass. Like, I'm not sure everybody even knows about that yet. And again, not sure if it's yet a trend, but it might very, very well become one. So yeah, question again. What are you seeing that's similar to that? Those like little things that others might overlook, that aren't like the mega trends that are relatively easy to talk about. It's the little things sometimes that are the most juicy nuggets.
I'll share one that's like top down and one that's like bottom up. The top down one I'll say is that we often see this dichotomy, I think, between games that want to be within the EVM ecosystem, so they're like kind of Ethereum and EVM compatible ecosystem, and games that don't. So that's like one trend we're kind of seeing on that front. We're seeing from a size of developer standpoint, we're also seeing that the really, really big ones are exploring doing everything as an entire full stack. Everything from the chain all the way up to everything that's end user facing, versus like smaller indie developers obviously wanting to use as much infrastructure that's already out there. From a bottoms up standpoint, one thing I think is really interesting is that the last sort of 6 to 12 months, a lot of the story or problem that developers have been trying to solve has been it's always been very, very binary, in the sense of, do I do things like really Web 2 or do I do things like fully Web 3? And that has always been I think this caused a lot of consternation, right, in developers' minds, because they're constantly thinking about what is the best way to go to market with this thing, and do I need to go all the way Web 3, which then obviously makes some go to market things harder, or there's some trade-offs around it, right? One thing we're seeing now is that more and more we're seeing this, I think Tony mentioned this before, this like 2.5 kind of model, where maybe it's minting initially, you do a big drop and it's like free for everyone, right? That's all on chain. And then within the game, you try and keep things off chain. And for some people, that is like a philosophical kind of thing they want to avoid. So ideologically, they want to keep everything on chain. But for many practical developers, we're seeing that they may want to actually do a lot of the initial, like whether it's loot boxes or some other thing, it's all just delivered to the user off chain. And then at some point, these things get minted. Where that point is, I think, is like up for debate. And I think it's going to be different depending on the gameplay. But we think that's a really interesting evolution, at least in the mindset, because it sort of you start to realize that there is no right way to do this kind of stuff, right? It's just a matter of whatever's going to work best for onboarding the user ultimately. And my personal opinion, we don't really have a view on this as like Magic Eden as a company. My personal view, and mainly because we're happy to support developers whichever way they want to do it. But my personal view is that basically the more that you could reduce that burden upfront for users, and then create the on-chain experiences once there's like some kind of benefit or exciting moment, that's the right time to do it. That's when the user feels the magic, right? And I think we haven't had many of those magical moments yet in gaming up to this point. These free drops is kind of another version of that, I think, where users feel like suddenly like, oh, this is cool. Like I just get this thing for free. Like that's amazing. If there's more moments like that we can create and simplify that journey, at least at the beginning, I think we'll start to see a lot more interesting adoption of some of these games. What do you think?
I mean, I think each genre is different, right? So kind of, the magic moment, or, how games get me to buy stuff, in Web 2, in traditional gaming, right? It's always be like, A, out of frustration, or B, out of excitement. And I never think about the price, or, is this like something like, I get my money return on, XYZ. And I think, so I think, for tradition, the ones that are, more practical, right? They follow the standard, land sale or NFT sale, right? But some of the new ones, right? For example, for example, first person shooter, right? How do you create the magical moment with skins? That's a question that, that didn't even get solved in Web 2, right? It's like Riot invented, free to play, game cosmetic monetization, and the whole industry just kind of, at some point copied or adopted a lot of its principle and game, monetization strategy. Or when Epic invented the battle pass, season pass, right? And the whole, again, right? I think there has to be something that, player feels like they get the bang out of the buck, right? If you're talking, you're appealing to a more group of rational, more return-driven folks, right? They have to believe that this project's be awesome. That's why they're supporting it. But B, I mean, more importantly, is they feel like, dude, by supporting it or buying, whatever assets, right? They're part of the community, right? They're part of the journey, and they're also thinking like, hey, like by being early, I'm like, I get something out of it, right? Whether it's recognition or anything, it's like a crowdfunding Kickstarter, same kind of principle, right? And then maybe later down the line, right, people can then think about at what point can you make the user monetization, super awesome and coherent in a way that it doesn't disrupt their user experience, and it also adds, just a new type of monetization system to the game developers. What that is, I mean, I don't know. I want to actually, I'm very curious about it, so we'll see.
Yeah, a lot is still to be solved. So watch the space, I guess, is the TLDR on that. We only have a few minutes left. I know you guys have a hard stop, but I'm going to ask you a very quick question about creator royalties and how they relate to gaming in particular. There's obviously this kerfuffle going on. We realized as an ecosystem that creator royalties weren't actually enforceable on the smart contract, or at least aren't yet. I know there's conversations around that. I know this is a hot topic right now. By the time this pod airs, who knows what developments will have emerged. But I'm very curious to hear your thoughts, not so much on the kerfuffle. You should go watch Zed's on the Unchained podcast. Excellent, really interesting episode that was all dedicated entirely to creator royalties. So I'm not going to do that work on this pod. We're all about gaming here after all. But I do want to hear your guys' thoughts. How do you think this matters, or does it matter for game developers, this creator royalty? Either way. So let me give you a quick what I mean by that question. If there are no creator royalties at all, and or they're not enforced, game developers will naturally build different ways of monetizing. I mean, that's what game developers do. So to me personally, as a game developer, the creator royalty piece is not that interesting or not that important. I actually think it would make it worse in some ways as a game developer to have the creator royalties be enforced at the protocol level, because that's kind of forcing payers to like pay this tax essentially to the creator. The game developer benefits the game developer a little bit, but it feels weird as a player, as I'm trading assets, to be paying the game developer like a second time, if you know what I mean. So I'm still forming my view on this. It's evolving, and I'm sure it will continue to evolve. But that's really where my question is coming from. How do you think this matters, if at all, for game developers? If it's either not enforced at all, or it's not even a thing anymore, or it is enforced and it actually happens at the protocol level.
Yeah, this is the hot topic of the day.
No joke.
I think it does. It ultimately does matter, but I think it's to varying degrees depending on who you talk to. That's what makes this topic so heated or controversial, is that there's no one size fits all answer, whether it's in gaming or outside of gaming. On the gaming side specifically, I would say that, yeah, I would echo your views, Niko, that very much game developers will figure it out. Whether it is a different way for monetization, that's one way of handling this, or they figure it out in the sense of they find innovative and interesting ways to enforce it, right, through some sort of incentive, right? I mean, when we announced the optional royalties on Magic Eden, immediately we had a couple of studios come to us and say, hey, is there a way for us to at least know which NFTs do not pay the royalties, and we can then change some of the things that happen in the game as a result, whether that's a carrot or a stick. And that sort of that was within 12 hours of us making that announcement. Already game developers were thinking about what to do. So I do think that ultimately royalties is net really good for the ecosystem. I really believe that. And that position has never changed on the Magic Eden side. I think that we just felt, and I think a lot of people felt, to your point, the player side or the buyer side really felt that ultimately if it's not enforceable, then there's always going to be folks that try and skirt around it. So this conversation around how do we enforce, what are the ways to do it, what are the ways to encourage or discourage certain behaviors, how do we incentivize people to pay royalties, all that kind of stuff I think is just some product and technical innovation that has to happen. And then I think game developers are actually the most well-equipped to deal with it, in the sense of they're already thinking about all the different ways to run different business models and ways to incentivize users in certain ways. So hopefully this is something that does not cause too much disruption for game developers. And I think based on the feedback so far, we haven't seen too much of it. But ultimately, it doesn't matter whether it's royalties or not. Magic Eden, our hope is that we're here to effectively serve developers, creators, in whatever it is that they want to do. So whether it's royalties or not, like we're happy to actually get pretty involved and make sure that you guys have what you need to effectively run your game, run your business, etc.
Awesome. Yeah. Royalties just never felt, they were like an added bonus for us, but we never thought like, oh, royalties, that's an interesting business model for a game. I think for some games, it probably can be, right? There's probably game designs where it actually works quite well. But yeah, for us, it was almost like, okay, I guess we'll do a 5% royalty. Like, sure, why not, right? Kind of thing. So we literally spent like 30 seconds thinking about that number. It was like, what number do we want to put in there? Because like, that's what everybody does. Like, and so I actually think it's interesting because we're all going to have to think a little bit harder now. So in my mind, this is actually a good thing that this is happening, because we're all going to have to collectively figure out, okay, what are the right solutions and what are the paths forward. So anyway, I know you guys are out of time, so we'll wrap it up here. Zed, thank you so much for coming on. Tony, thank you so much for coming on. This was a great conversation. You are welcome back anytime, and would love to maybe follow up in the not too distant future on what the creator royalties situation looks like, and how maybe gaming is either helping to solve it or is impacted by whatever the decision is, to whether it's enforceable on the protocol level or not. So thank you, and thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Matt.
Awesome. And a huge thank you to, of course, all our listeners. We will be back next week, as always, with more interviews, more insights, more analysis from the weird and wonderful world of Web3. So until next time, friends, stay crypto curious and feel free to send questions, guest recommendations, and comments to me. My email is nico@naavik.co, and you can find me on Twitter @NicoTheFin. DMs are always open. Thank you.